Welcome to episode 26 of Career Pro Tips by Life in the Green Room. Life in the Green Room is all about helping busy professionals who want more out of their career and they want some way to be the most efficient when they're looking to drive success and change in their career. We focus on things that are actionable, tangible, specific. They're exercises and advice and things that you can apply, different strategies, tactics right away to start making the changes that you want in your career. In Career Pro Tips, each week we dive into a specific topic and we talk about some recommendations and advice around that thing, and it's something you can do right away. My name is Heather Green McLinn, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing at a Fortune 500 company. I feel so strongly about the ability to take ownership over your career. I've heard people come to me and say, look, I'm floundering, I'm being overlooked for promotions, I've been in the same place for the past 5 years and I'm not going anywhere. And so I started to look around and see, well, what has worked for people? And I started putting them together, and that's how I come up with the different topics I want to talk about and the things I want to share with you as far as ways that you can take ownership and start moving the needle in your career right away. I've used these tips, I've seen my colleagues, my peers, and my team use them. I know that they can help you too. In this week, in episode number 26, we are going to talk about our leaders' readers. Sorry, I said that backwards right away, but there's an expression that gets thrown around there quite a bit that talks about leaders being readers. And so I kind of wanted to throw that out there for consideration and see where you fall in on that statement. I believe it, but I think there's so much more to being a good leader than just being well read. But today I'm going to focus on the reading portion and talk about what you could do if you want to up your reading game to help you in your career. So I've heard people also talk about the expression that it takes 10,000 hours to be an expert at something. And I think the 10,000 hours includes lots of time with your hands dirty, actually doing the work, but I think reading can be a component of it. And so as you think about becoming more well-read to help you be a better, stronger, more forward-thinking, open to change leader, let's think about how we tie that all together, how we tie together your reading along with what you're doing, what your application is to become the best leader that you can be. So when you think about reading, it's such a really wide topic, and I would like you to challenge you in when we thinking about this today, a couple of things. What is the topic that you want to double down on and learn so much about so you become more well-versed and you feel more confident and you're more able to be, hey, look, this is the expert in this area who I want to go to. How do you figure out that topic? How do you incorporate what you're reading into your work, and how do you handle your leaders who may be really well read and what they throw out to? And the third one is just super practical. How do I find this time to read? The top of the episode, we talk every time about how busy we are as a professional. How do I, on top of everything else I'm doing, find time to read? We're going to dive into that too. And my challenge for you at the end will be to think about your plan for reading and see if it's working for you. And if not, to make some tweaks so you can add this as a component in your career ownership journey. So the first one I want to chat about is, what are you going to become an expert in? If you want to be really well read in something, the best way to do it is to narrow in on something. That way, as you accumulate knowledge, you really are becoming extremely deep in that area and a really big expert. There are so many things that you could choose in your area to read on. So my suggestion would be to think through what feels good to you. Do you really want to know what the trends are in your industry? Great area to become an expert in. What about technology changes? I don't care what industry you're in, technology is just running over things in your space. So do you want to become well versed in that? Do you want to learn about a certain area in your function and what are the best process improvements? How do I become the most efficient and most productive? How do I make sure that my department is just amazingly well-oiled machine? You could choose that as your area. You can choose industry trends, what's going on with competitors. You can look at your news in your space. There's so many different ways to tackle it. So my first suggestion would be to pick a niche and really go all in on that. You can come up with lists of publications, articles, podcasts, webinars, seminars. How are you going to consume the information about the topic that you choose? If you're not sure which of those areas is the most interesting, no big deal. Try a couple on. Maybe choose a week or a month and go in on each of them. For a month, just focus only on trends in your industry. For another month, look at technology, etc., until you find one that fits. If you're going to be squeezing in extra time to really become knowledgeable on something, pick something you love. There's so many different things to tackle. You don't need to waste it on something that's a true chore for you. Go for something that's super interesting. So the second thing I wanted to give you some time to think about is how do you incorporate it? As you're reading all these ideas, your challenge is to think, what can I take with this and just apply it? It shouldn't be like a fiction book where you're truly reading it for entertainment and enjoyment. You should try to think of 1 to 2 things that you're going to apply and pick baby steps at first, take baby steps at first, try small things, figure out how you can apply them in your job. That's where the magic is where you read something, you learn about it, and you implement it and you make it happen. So find a few areas from there and dip your toe in. And when you get a question out of left field from your management or your leaders, that can also be where it's coming from. They could be reading something on the Wall Street Journal or some other publication that has a new idea or article, and they're thinking the same thing. How do I stay on the forefront of things? How do I incorporate this into my company or my department or my role? And they can be coming to you to ask that question. So you could come about this at a way of saying, look, this is the project I'm working on, but I've had this idea or I read this new thing. I think we should think about it. That way you can add value and apply what you're learning right away. The final thing, the third thing I wanted to chat about is when will you find time to read? We started out talking about how busy we are. I get it. And so how are you going to find time to read? I've heard lots of people say, well, read 30 to 60 minutes a day, and in no time at all, you're going to become an expert. 100% could be true. My world does not allow for 60 minutes a day of reading. I wish it did. I love to read, but that's not the world I'm living in. So how do you find little bits of time? Be creative here. Maybe the first 15 minutes when you get to your office before you open your email, you read an article. Maybe you go strictly audio, whether it's audiobooks or podcasts, and you listen to it during your commute or when you're at the gym or when you're folding clothes or doing your chores around the house. Maybe you say, you know what, I usually eat lunch at my desk and I'm going to take 10 minutes every day and read an article while I'm eating my lunch. There's time out there, but you have to think about what's going to work for you and be intentional about making sure you hold to that and read during that time. So, does a reader make you a better leader? I think so. I think you can pick a topic that's really ignites you and gets you excited. I think you can be intentional about finding time to read and then figuring out how you can apply it in your job, your current job and your future jobs, to really embrace the change and be a kind of leader who is on the forefront of what's going on. I'd love to hear what you think about reading and how it helps you become a better leader. Leave me a note below on the topics you like to read on and how you like to apply them, and what successes or challenges you've had in that. Until next week, here's to owning your career journey.